start to, as you start to enter here, I appreciate you coming to attend our webinar tonight. My name is Lieutenant Sean Olagi, and I'll be your host, kind of moderator, and we'll be joined by two really good presenters who've practiced all their material with us and put it all together for you to help you become hunters and users of our South San Francisco Bay. So looking forward to tonight's webinar. We have some poll questions we'll open up with just to see what your experience is compared to what we're searching for as far as how to help you. We might have some really experienced people on here. We might have some people with no experience. So we're just trying to see what your needs may be. As far as questions go, please use the question answer function in the Zoom application. It says QA. If you kind of move around a cursor or your finger or whatever you have, apparatus you're using to view us, look for that question answer function and feel free to ask us what you may need to know. The chat function can be used for comments, maybe to help one of the panelists find the right word or find the little secret spot that you want to direct people to, which I'm sure you don't. But anyways, we could use your help and we'll gladly take it as long as it's a positive note. So let me see, we have another minute before I'll go ahead and get started legitimately. This will be recorded. If you have to step out for any reason, please visit our YouTube channel on our CDFW, and you will be able to view this at a later date. It will take a little while to get turned over into a video format, just because there's certain things we have to do, closed captioning, confirm that for everything. So feel free to visit our CDFW YouTube channel for past videos. There's a lot of stuff there that might be able to help you that you might not have known about. Some of the people were notified of this function that we have, this Advanced Center Ed program, via our license and data license system. So this may be your first time visiting us. So, but thank you for coming and welcome. Okay, so what I really like to do all the time is start off with some polls. The polls help us determine what your experience is. I do have some jokes in the polls, so sometimes that actually helps with a couple of things as far as that goes. I'm going to allow our panelists to participate, and I am going to launch our first poll. So welcome, and let's get going. So enjoy the joke. Please be really critical of it. If it's good, tell me. If not, let me know. So the first question is, have you ever hunted at Eden Landing Ecological Reserve? And it's just a yes or no answer. All right, see some no's, a lot of no's. And the joke, it's probably lame, but why did the duck hunter have no batting average? All he can hit are fouls, okay? A couple not funnies. I knew that was gonna happen, but I appreciate it. It's hard to find clean jokes to put on these webinars. There's so many dirty ones, I can't post them, then I'll get in trouble. All right, so I'm gonna go for a couple more seconds here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm gonna end the poll, and I'm gonna share the results. So we have a lot of newbies here, a lot of people who are interested in this. Ryan, you got your work cut out for you. 89% of you have not hunted Eden Landing, and 91% said my joke was okay. It's not my joke, it's what I found. So, all right, let's go on to the next one. Next question is Don Edwards, kind of the same thing. Have you ever hunted Don Edwards, San Francisco Bay National Wildlife Refuge? Yes or no? Oh, I have to launch it. And my joke, a duck walks into a drugstore and tells the man, give me some chapstick and put it on my bill. That's pretty lame, huh? If I get a chuckle or a smile, that's all it's worth, okay? Thank you for this. Oh, a lot more people think it's not funny. All right. So we got some people, some more in this case, who've hunted Don Edwards. All right. So here we go. I'm going to end the poll in 3, 2, 1. And so 79% of you have not hunted Don Edwards, and 84% thought my joke was funny. All right, let's go with the next one. There's the actual results for you. This will not show on the recording, so that's why I'm telling everybody about it. And let's stop sharing and let's go. I have 2 more polls. Hunting dogs. Here we go. Do you have a dog capable of retrieving ducks on the water? Yes or no? And the joke is, how do you make a duck blind? You poke it in the eyes. All right. We're just curious to what type of method of retrieval that you might use for these areas. If you're going to try to use a boat, use your dog. If you have no idea what you need to do in order to retrieve ducks, this kind of helps us for our presenters. Okay, and I'm going to end the poll and share the results. So 23% of you have dogs that will help you retrieve your ducks on the water. And man, my jokes are just getting worse, I guess. You're getting tired of them. So let's go to the next one and the last. Won't bother you anymore. And here's the last question is, what experience do you have waterfowl hunting? So less than 10 trips or 10 or more trips. We want to see what your experience level is. So this is, I expect to be more balanced. And my joke is, why don't ducks ever grow up? Because they grow down. And it's getting worse scores as we go. All right. Well, as you can see, I started with the best joke and I went down. I just ran out of clean jokes, I could tell. And the poll is ending and the results are, so this is cool. We have a 50-50 mix on basically what I consider new people, because 10 trips is not enough to become an expert in this field. And usually if you've gone more than 10 trips, you like what you're doing and you've probably pursued it to a level where you're becoming proficient at it. And the joke has the lowest score of 57%. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing and I am going to share my screen. Let's see. Takes a little bit for me. Down here, Zoom, share screen. And how come it's not working right? Well, it's gonna be just 1 second. This always gives me troubles. There it is. All right, are you seeing my title page, everything? Thank you for joining us, right? Yes? Ryan? All right, great. So this is what we're going to be covering tonight. We're going to be covering the South San Francisco Bay from Highway 92, which is up here south into the Palo Alto area, Santa Clara County. We're going to be covering Eden Landing, which is up here by Alameda Creek and Highway 92. And we're going to be covering the Don Edwards National Wildlife Refuge, which is over here by Bear Island and really in the South Alviso area. So our presenters tonight, we're joined by CDFW Warden Ryan McCoy. Ryan has been a game warden for almost 15 years, with all of that being in the Bay Area. He currently patrols Alameda and Contra Costa County, and he has been known to attempt such culinary experiments as coot sausage. You can see he's got a nice little strap of coots there. Ryan, can you tell us how good the coot sausage was? You need to unmute.
Wonderful.
Wonderful. I don't know. Some people had other words for him. Something about coot chili and coot sausage. I heard a story last night. And we're also joined tonight by Melissa Amato. She is U.S. Fish and Wildlife Refuge Manager out of Antioch Dunes, Marine Islands, San Pablo National Wildlife Refuges, and the San Francisco Bay National Wildlife Refuge complex. She's been with the department for 17 years. Thank you for joining us, Melissa. She's managed the waterfowl hunt programs on Don Edwards and San Pablo Bay since 2008. She enjoys assisting hunters. She's been a wealth of knowledge. She was referred to me by some of the wardens that said, hey, Melissa's the person to have on this. And she enjoys camping, cooking, weightlifting, and napping. Those sound like pretty good activities, Melissa. She's tried some vegetable gardening and everything died, and she lives in Petaluma with their 9-year-old son and 1-year-old German Shepherd. Should be a lab, but that's okay. We'll give you a pass at this time. All right, so I am going to turn it over to Ryan to go ahead and start your.
Hey, Sean, how about you introduce yourself too?
Yeah, that's kind of behind the thing. Yes, might as well. That was my captain, who's the statewide administrator for hunter education. I am Lieutenant Sean Loggy. I've been with the department for 23 years almost, and I love what I do. I was born and raised hunting and fishing in the area of Los Banos. I actually have some ducks in my fridge that I'm supposed to eat tonight after we're done with this webinar, so it might be short. No, I'm just kidding. My son's going to cook them. We had a great duck opener here in the grasslands, and duck hunting is one of my passions. So if you have questions for me for in the future, not just today on this topic, go ahead and give me a ring, a shout out, whatever it is, and I'll help you out with it. I run the Advanced Hunter Ed program, and the reason we have this Advanced Hunter Ed program is to try to break down any barriers to you entering the field, to help you become more confident, to have some success, so that you are retained by us as sportsmen, that you're out there contributing to conservation and having a good time and passing on the tradition. So welcome again. Thank you for joining us. Is that good enough, Robert? Probably. All right.
Yeah, that was good.
Perfect.
Maybe some mention of our instructors and
Hunter Ed instructors. I was going to do that. I have a little list here, and I'm not following it. So we also joined tonight by our volunteers, some of our volunteer Hunter Ed instructors who work throughout the state, who typically under a non-pandemic type arena give people the opportunity to get their hunter education card through them, through their classes that they put on, so that they can enjoy our hunting tradition too. Thank you, all you Hunter Ed instructors, for doing what you do and for sticking with us. I have been with them in my positions with the Hunter Ed program since 2006, and I really enjoy who they are. So thank you for your work too. And I know the question is going to say, when are we starting Hunter Ed again? I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure it'll come in, and I'll leave that question for Robert. But anyways, Ryan's a Hunter Ed instructor himself. He's taught several classes in Pleasanton, Dublin area, I think. And he's helping us pass on the tradition. He's a hunter himself, and he enjoys to help you. All right, Ryan, go ahead and take it over, take the screen, and we'll get started.
Ready. Okay, we see that?
Yep, looks great.
All right, so this portion of the presentation is about hunting at Eden Landing Ecological Reserve. So that is the current name of the reserve. It will be changing at some point in the future. The legislature has changed it to the Congressman Pete Stark Ecological Reserve, but currently that's still the name, and that's how you will search for it on the website, and all the links will link to this particular name. So Eden Landing Ecological Reserve is a 6,400 acre property owned by the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. For those of you kind of familiar with the area, you probably can see where it is immediately with all of the freeways. For those that aren't, it's in Alameda County. It's mostly in Hayward, although it also is in portions of Union City as well. It is south of the 92 bridge and west of 880. So getting to Eden Landing, depending on, we're talking about hunting today. And so this is how you get to when you're going hunting at Eden Landing. There is another entrance over on the 92 side, over in Hayward for the general public on non-hunt days. But this is where you're going to want to go when you're going hunting. If you go to the other entrance, you will not be able to enter the reserve on a hunt day. So the check station is that yellow circle that's up there. And most people have navigation devices now, whether on your phone or a Nuvi or something to that effect. And if you just put in, VZ Street in Union City, you will get there. You will find it. I'm certain, especially if you're coming early in the morning, you will see the line of vehicles entering the check station there, turning down that road at the intersection of Horner and VZ. Hang a right, and you can't miss it. The press release for the hunt dates has not come out yet, so everybody who's on this presentation is sort of getting a sneak peek on what the hunt dates are going to be this year. That's what they are. We do 10 hunts a year, Saturdays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And the reason for the Tuesdays and Thursdays was in trying to avoid the Wednesday days, which a lot of other refuges utilize for their hunt days. So this kind of gives folks another opportunity who are able to or who like to hunt the weekdays as well. Should be noted too, so no hunting is allowed within the boundaries of the reserve other than on these dates. And on these hunt dates also, as I mentioned, it is closed to the public on hunt days. So the only people who can come in are hunters on those days.
Ryan, just a quick question. When will these dates be posted somewhere on the Eden Landing page?
Yeah, I was told it's going to be shortly.
Okay. This question has been asked by several, and they probably want to know where to find it later. So take a quick picture of it if you have a chance.
Yeah, this should be coming out pretty quick here within the next week or so. You can see the first date isn't until November 20th, so it's still a little ways off, but it will be coming out soon in a press release and on the Eden Landing page, which will be linked at the end of this presentation.
Thank you.
So kind of what you should expect, this is kind of what this presentation is about, is more an overview, kind of what to expect when you go there. We're really not going to delve too far into waterfowl hunting techniques or real specific areas there, but this should give you a pretty good overview of what's going on at the reserve. And I'll mention this ahead of time and kind of reiterate at the very last slide. My contact information is on the very last slide. So if any of you have any questions regarding hunting at Eden Landing or any waterfowl hunting for that matter within Alameda County, I'm happy to answer those questions. So this is the layout of Eden Landing. This is a map that's available on our website on the Eden Landing page that's linked at the end of this presentation. And this shows you all of the different ponds, the different tidal creeks, the marshes, etc., and shows you all of the closed areas, where the parking areas are, the check station, etc. So you'll notice on there some of where the parking areas are. Everything's going to be designated where you can and cannot drive on by orange cones. So something that's real important to understand, and we'll talk about it here in another couple slides, but it's really important not to drive past the orange cones, past the parking areas, going into some of the areas that you're not supposed to go in. But again, all of this is available at that link on the linked at the end of this presentation. Also note that the reserve manager's contact information is in the upper right-hand corner of this of that map that's publicly available, so that if you have any questions or you want to reserve the ADA blind, etc., that's the gentleman you contact, John Kraus, who, if you see him out there, make sure to thank John for his continued support of these hunts, because he's the one who started this program out there, and it's been a big success. So, as I mentioned, Eden Landing, it's made up of salt ponds. This whole area that was over there in much of the South Bay was formerly, and still is in many places, was part of commercial salt production. That's what all of these ponds were evaporation ponds for salt production. And so you'll also notice I put in there that some of them have old blinds in them. And the reason for it, even when they were in commercial salt production, these areas were already being used for commercial waterfowl hunting clubs at that time. It also has marshes in it, various tidal marshes and tidal creeks. And as you might imagine, being in the South Bay, you've got a ton of waterfowl out there, and also a ton of other marsh birds, for which Eden Landing is primarily managed for. The two probably most common species that we see taken out at Eden Landing are widgeon and shovelers, or AKA spoonies, but you see a tremendous amount of different types of ducks out there, including mallards, scaup, various teal, mostly green wings, canvasback, redheads, etc. We do get a few Canada geese, but it's not a tremendous amount. They tend to like to hang out on the soccer fields nearby. These were our results from last year. This was last year's hunts, and as I said, you know, the number one birds are generally either spoonies or widgeon. You'll see widgeons kind of take over later in the year, and then followed by, and spoonies are always there. The waterfowl average last year was pretty decent, especially later in the year. The year prior, it was really good as well. So you can see that that folks tend to have pretty decent success, and as you learn the reserve, you'll find that that there are areas that really produce birds real well. As I said, the geese numbers, we do see some, but it's not in great numbers in that area. Also take note, and we'll mention this a little bit later, just kind of the number of hunters. That's the total for the day. So that's not necessarily at one time. Those are the total number of hunters on one day. And, you know, on the weekdays, obviously, you're going to see lower impact than on the weekends generally.
Really quick, Ryan, when it comes to the species, are there other species that a person's allowed to take out there, like snipe or rabbits or upland game, or is it just waterfowl?
So it's just anything that's allowed during the waterfowl season.
Okay.
So yeah, no rabbits or any upland game, nothing like that. Anything that's in the waterfowl table that you would normally be able to take during the waterfowl season, you would be allowed to take during the Eden Landing hunts.
Okay, so designated waterfowl, snipe wouldn't count because they're upland birds, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, if they're upland birds, then no.
Okay.
So at Eden, no fees charged, nor any special passes needed to hunt. So in other words, you know, none of the wildlife area passes, that kind of thing. Your hunting license and required validations or stamps will be checked upon entry, though. Okay, so we usually at least once a hunt, maybe a couple other times, people will get turned away because they don't have one of the required stamps, whether that's the state or the federal. Usually those are the ones that the people get turned away for. You are more than welcome to go down to the local Walmart or wherever you normally purchase your licenses, and you can come back after you've purchased the missing stamp or validation. Okay. If you want to go in as a non-hunter with another hunter, that's perfectly acceptable. So let's say, for example, you forget your stuff and you go, I'm not gonna hunt today. I don't want to mess up my buddy's hunt, and you just want to go sit in the blind with them. That's more than fine. But you can't hunt if you don't have the required licenses or the license and validation. Entry is on a first come, first served basis. And we try to limit the number of hunters to 100 at any given time. Trying to give everybody a good experience out there, make sure everybody gets spread out pretty good. And checking at the VZ Street gate generally starts 2 hours prior to shoot time. And you know, be nice to the folks checking you in. Sometimes the lines take a little bit longer, especially on the first hunt, because they got to go through the list and find your name, or if you're a new hunter, they're going to write down all your information and check you in. So sometimes, especially on the first hunt, it takes a little while to get everybody in, but usually you're going to have more than enough time to get into whatever hunt area that you're looking to go to. And then check out upon completion of your hunt. So the check station gate will close 1 hour after shoot time ends. And you know, we want to make sure that you guys get out of there. So, you know, try and help us out. And as soon as you're done with your hunt, you know, get your stuff picked up, and don't take too long out in the field, and come out and check out. When you're checking out, we want to see your birds in order to, you know, obviously identify them and see what kind of numbers you got. Okay. And we have had incidents in the past of people, you know, driving past cones. Like I said, don't drive past the cones and getting stuck. Very muddy on the non-gravel roads. So don't worry if you know, you happen to make a poor decision. We will come looking for you. We don't want to leave anybody out there in the middle of the ponds. Again, all waterfowl hunting and other applicable hunting laws and regulations apply. At the reserve, there is a infield 25 shell limit. For those of you who've hunted refuges before, you should be pretty used to this. The question always comes up, can I leave more shells in the car at the parking areas? Absolutely. They just can't be in your possession in the field. So 25 in field. If you run out of those 25, you're welcome to walk back to your vehicle and get 25 more. Pay attention to your location. We do that nice map for you, and we usually have knowledgeable people on site to answer your questions. You're going to have my contact information at the end of this. Know your location and where you can and cannot be. You can download the map beforehand. You can obtain a map at the check station the morning of the hunt. There are no assigned areas at Eden Landing. Okay, so free roam within the open areas is allowed. Sean put up the poll question beforehand about how many of you own a dog. We highly recommend, if you have, obviously if you have, you know, a duck dog, you're going to bring it. And we highly recommend you do, or a small vessel, a kayak, a canoe, etc. Retrieval in many of these places can sometimes be difficult, if not impossible, without one of these items. The ponds themselves are pretty variable. So, you know, some of them have ditches around the perimeter of them to where you step in them and you're going to go above your waders. So that's not every pond, but many of them do. And certainly within the creeks or certain tidal portions of the marshes, that's going to be the same thing. So kind of getting to know the areas is going to be a process for many of you who haven't hunted it before. But folks at the check station and or myself can kind of give you a general idea of maybe where you want to start if you don't have any of these items. There are lots of successful hunters out there who do not have a dog or don't bring a boat, but they've figured out where to hunt and they can retrieve their birds either by walking into a pond that's accessible, or they've set themselves up to where when they do shoot a bird, it's likely not to sail into an area where they can't retrieve it. I also mentioned in here the fishing rod method for those of you who've been to other refuges or have hunted at Eden Landing. There were a few of you there. You've seen guys walking around with fishing rods with, you know, big lures on them with treble hooks or just a single treble hook. And, you know, they'll cast those out and retrieve the duck that way, trying to hit it and drag it back. It can be effective, but again, it's not going to be a relatively foolproof method like a well-trained dog or a small vessel. Above all else, make sure you can shoot only what you can reasonably retrieve. This is probably the number one complaint that I get from other hunters out at Eden Landing, is that people sailing birds and not attempting to retrieve them. So use of vessels. There is an available boat launch on site, which dumps into Mount Eden Creek with access to San Francisco Bay. Small vessels are also allowed into the ponds. As I said, be aware, all of the ponds have variable depths. Some of them you'll be running in the pond and all of a sudden you'll hit ground. And that changes from year to year too, based on what type of pond it is. Some of the ponds on the reserve are managed, meaning that water is pumped up to a certain level or left at a certain level for the year, or they are open to tidal activity. So again, and this changes year to year depending on the reserve manager's management strategy for the area. The creeks and SFA are tidal. So if you're going to put a boat into Mount Eden Creek and go out to SFA or into Old Alameda Creek, you definitely want to consult a tide chart, learn how to read a tide chart prior to your visit. Because some of those areas, especially going out into San Francisco Bay, all of that area becomes a mud flat, you know, at a low tide, and will leave you high and dry until the tide comes back in. So understanding all of that, if you've never hunted within a tidal area, that's it's going to be something to take note of and learn. And then within the creeks as well, obstructions are also present. So there are areas where you've got big pieces of concrete that you can't see, and at a lower tide, if you're running an outboard in one of those places, you're going to hit it, and that's going to ruin your day. So other housekeeping notes: be respectful to other hunters by giving them plenty of room. Again, this is probably the second most complaint that I get, other than retrieval, is that hunters are coming up and hunting too close to other groups. Try to give everybody at least 100 yards and more, if not. This is a big property. Again, 6,400 acres. There's plenty of huntable space, plenty of good areas, plenty of areas that folks that don't hunt on a regular basis that still produce really good birds, and you know, so there's lots to explore and lots to learn about the place. Bicycles are not permitted. So I know in other places they do allow the use of those. We do not on Eden Landing. And do not shoot on or over the traveled levee roads. So those are those main roads where people are driving vehicles down or just past where they're able to walk down. So please don't shoot on or over that. That's a big safety issue. There is one ADA blind available, so meaning it's wheelchair accessible and all of the rest. It is not a free roam area. You have to hunt from the blind. It can be reserved prior to the hunt day, and what you got to do is you got to contact the reserve manager prior to the hunt, and they will you know, they'll communicate with you as to whether it's available or not, and allow you to and sign you up for it if it is. And that all that contact information again is on the right-hand corner of that hunt map that I showed you before. The blind really accepts about 3 to 4 people max. And just another thing that I kind of forgot to mention about some of the ponds, you've seen it in some of the pictures probably, there are quite a few old blinds in the ponds, and all of them are highly variable again as to their structural integrity. So some of them are great and you can sit in them and they've got dog ramps and all of the rest, and others are, you know, haven't been maintained in a lot of years, and I'd be scared to step into them. So, but that's an option as well, you know, going into one of the middle of the ponds, finding one of those blinds and hunting from it as well.
All right. Ryan, really quick, there were some pretty good questions that I wanted to make sure everybody knew. So if somebody wants to hunt here, basically, what's their step in order, the first step for them to get to be eligible to hunt on this place?
So again, there's no, we don't require any special permits, no reservations or anything else. So you need your hunting license, obviously, you need all your required validations and stamps. And, you know, you can show up again. Check-in starts in the morning, 2 hours prior. You can show up at any time of the day, you know, up until obviously we're done with shoot time, right? So you can show up at any time of the day and come in and go hunting. So it's pretty simple.
Now, some people are asking about the bottom, like how are the bottoms out there? I mean, are they passable, or is it one of those places where you sink like 2 feet for every step that you take?
So it depends. Yeah, it depends. So most of the ponds are fairly hard bottomed in the shallow areas, so you can usually walk them. Some of them, depending on how they've been managed throughout the year, will get a little bit more goopy. The creeks are very muddy. You step onto the edge of any of those tidal creeks, you're going to go, you know, at least up to your knee, if not more, in mud. And then outside within the main bay itself, that's again variable. If you get into you know, shell beds or something like that, it's going to be fairly hard packed. But other areas around there, you're going to sink up to, again, your knee, your quad, your waist into mud, and you're going to have fun trying to get out of there. So it's definitely, again variable depending on where you're at.
Okay. Another question, I see you have the answer to it here. Is the ADA blind, I guess, is reserved through the reserve manager, right? So
that's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct. And he tries to be you know, fairly, you know, fair about, you know, giving it to different people at different times. It's not like one person can reserve it for all 10 hunts. So try to allow as many opportunities to other folks who may want to use it as we can.
Now, being that this is a tidal marsh, are any of the areas like unhuntable when it's a low tide, or do you know like the magic number? Like if somebody were looking at you, probably, I assume they probably pick the hunt days based on the available tides probably too.
Not necessarily. No, I mean, nothing's necessarily unhuntable, as you'll find when you hunt tidal areas. Certainly the birds react differently to those areas when they're low as opposed to high, and they may trigger on the ponds more, and different birds may trigger on certain ponds differently, or they may not come into the creeks as much. So for example, on the creeks, you know, you'll have birds come down the chute, down the creeks on the high tides, and they may not necessarily on the low tides as much. They may go over. So different behavior.
All right. Well, there's a lot of questions here for you after you're done with your presentation. I'm sure some of them would love for you to address them. I think this was your last slide, correct?
I got one more, my contact info. I added the last one here, but you'll notice again, and I think Sean's linking it at the end, but that's the website. And if you just go onto our website too, you don't want to put in the link, just type Eden Landing into the search box and it'll come up with the.
Yes. Everybody on the webinar, really quick, I am including all the links that we're using tonight, plus some that I'll be sending out via email to you after our webinar.
So this is my contact info. That is my cell and my email address. If you have questions that weren't answered here, or otherwise, or other things related to issues in Alameda County not related to this, you're welcome to call me on that number, and I'll try and answer them for you.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. And please look at those question and answers. A lot related to your area. So if we can clarify them, that'd be great. All right, Melissa, you're up.
All right. Let me see here. Let me share my screen.
And just slideshow. There you go. Perfect.
All right, wonderful. Well, thanks everybody for hanging in there. And I would love to talk about the Don Edwards San Francisco Bay National Wildlife Refuge hunt program. And the first thing I'm going to do is just go over a few quick facts about the refuge itself, and then I'll kind of dive deeper into the waterfowl hunting program. And then I will briefly mention a few things that are a little bit different this year from previous years. So really quickly, the Don Edwards Refuge was established in 1972, and we are just a little over 30,000 acres within the South San Francisco Bay, but we are the largest refuge within the 7 refuges within the San Francisco Bay National Wildlife Refuge Complex. And we've got a lot of endangered species there in the South Bay. And the purpose of the refuge, the reason this refuge was established was to conserve those endangered species that I mentioned, and also to manage for migratory birds and other wildlife. And we're restoring and protecting a lot of habitat down there. And we have what we call the Big 6 wildlife-oriented recreation opportunities. And of course, hunting is one of them. And for the Don Edwards Refuge, we only have waterfowl hunting. So I mentioned a few of those endangered species. And the reason I bring this up is because it might help explain some of the regulations that we have in our hunt areas. But we have a lot of tidal marshes in the South Bay, but unfortunately, we've actually lost 90% of them historically. As a result, we've got 2 critically endangered species. You can see the Ridgway's rail on the left and our salt marsh harvest mouse on the right. And these 2 species are endemic to the San Francisco Bay tidal marsh, which basically means that they don't exist anywhere else on the planet except for the San Francisco Bay tidal marshes. So that vegetated tidal marsh habitat is protected. And then what I'm going to talk about mostly this evening is our managed pond habitat, which, as you all know, are very, very important for migratory birds. So this is an overview map of our waterfowl hunt areas. This map is, along with several others, is on our website. So they'll be easy for you to find this on our website. But just to look at these areas really quickly, the areas you see that are gray are open for hunting 7 days a week. And in the South Bay, you see areas that are striped in yellow, and those areas are open 3 days a week, Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesday. And so I'll go through and talk really briefly about each of these areas, hopefully answer some questions that you've got in your head already. And but the first thing I want to do is just quickly look at our waterfowl season dates. So these, we're beyond the early goose season, but just so you know, in the future, the Don Edwards Refuge is open each year for early goose. And of course, we're open this year every year for regular season and scop season. We do stay open for the youth hunt weekend. And we're also open on the military and veterans dates for waterfowl hunting. And you can find these dates at this website that I have below. Sean will be emailing this website out to you all, but keep in mind the San Francisco Bay Area is located in the balance of state zone. So that's where you'll look. I always tell people, if you're new or you want to start looking into hunting Don Edwards, the very best thing you can do is go to our website first and just play around. The easiest way to get there is to Google Don Edwards hunting. And I do my best to manage that website and put just about every piece of information I could think you would find useful on that website. So I always tell folks, go to the website, look at the maps, look at our waterfowl hunting regulations, write down your questions, and then call me. And I'm happy to talk you through any questions you've got. When you get to our website, this is what it looks like for the waterfowl hunting information page. If you look at the menu, the green menu on the left, you can see there are links for obtaining a refuge permit. There are hunt maps, driving directions. Those are super important. So the maps won't help you find these check stations. So get yourself those driving directions in front of you before you're heading out to the check stations. So I mentioned just a moment ago, a refuge permit. So we administer this through Eventbrite. And what we would like you to do, if you're going to be hunting in the ponds, we want you to register for a permit. So you would go to this Eventbrite page. It is free and it takes 30 seconds. And each hunter must register. So you just click that green register button, and all we ask for is your name and your email address. And as soon as you register through Eventbrite, it'll take maybe 5, maybe up to 15 minutes, but you will get a confirmation email from Eventbrite saying, thank you for registering. And that email will have an attachment, which will be your permit to hunt on the Don Edwards Refuge. And that's what this looks like right here. So what this permit does is it essentially gives you a gate code. You can see I've blacked it out right here, but it will tell you how to get behind our locked gates where we only allow waterfowl hunters to access, and it's closed to the general public. And this document also allows us just to have you confirm that you've read our waterfowl hunting regulations and that you understand them. You can print this piece of paper out and you can sign the bottom and carry it with you. We're also okay if you would like to download it on your phone so you don't have to carry around yet another item while you're hunting. So, and again, it's required if you hunt inside the ponds. If you're hunting the Bay or Bear Island or Greco, you don't need to register, but I just tell hunters, just do it anyway. It's free and it'll take you less than 30 seconds of your life to do it. So, okay, so I'm gonna quickly go through each of our hunt areas, and Sean, stop me if there are any questions that I can quickly answer. I'm happy to.
Okay.
So this is Bear Island and Greco Island. These units are located in the West Bay. You can see that there is, so where my cursor is Inner Bear Island. This is not open to hunting, but we have Middle Bear Island separated by Corkscrew Slough. And then there's Outer Bear Island. Those two, Middle and Outer Bear, are open to waterfowl hunting, and all of Greco Island is open to waterfowl hunting. These units are open 7 days a week. They're accessible by boat only, and you're going to want to launch right down here at Redwood City Marina. Perfectly safe to kayak from the marina over to Bear and Greco. It's super easy paddle. These two units are completely tidal, so you will want to have a tide chart in front of me. I have an app on my phone that I use called Tides Near Me, and I always use that to figure out what the daily tides are. So just keep in mind, at low tide, there's going to be a lot of mud flat out there, and at high tide, you'll be able to boat almost completely around the two islands. And what we would like you to do is shoot from your boat. If you feel more comfortable, you can pull your boat up onto a hunk of land and shoot adjacent to your boat. But what we'd like to avoid is having hunters pull their boat up and then walking 50 yards away and setting up a temporary blind and kind of walking all over that vegetated area. And that's because of those endangered species that I mentioned earlier. Let me see. I think that's all I wanted to cover about Bear and Greco Island. So I will move on.
And just so you guys know, I think we found out there is a $5 launch fee at Redwood City Marina. So be prepared for that.
Great, thank you. Yes. Ravenswood ponds, otherwise known as ponds R1 and R2. You can see these are located on the west side of the Dumbarton Bridge and to the north. There is a frontage road off of Highway 84. So you would get on that frontage road and you would park on the shoulder. And then you can see the two locations where we've identified the trail access. And you can walk or bike out on those levees, and you can shoot over the ponds from the levees. They are open to hunting 7 days a week. What you see where my cursor is right here in the middle of the two trailheads is a PG&E substation. And so one thing you'll see in our regulations is that we would like hunters to walk or bike at least 300 feet away from the Dumbarton Bridge and the PG&E substation. These ponds are very, very shallow. And although our regs say that you can pull a boat in, you can hunt from a boat, I'll tell you these ponds are very, very shallow. We dry them out completely during bird nesting season for endangered snowy plovers. And then about a week before hunt starts, our maintenance person goes out and floods up these ponds, but they still remain very shallow throughout the season. So I can't imagine hunting from a boat, but that is an option if you would like to try.
Melissa, really quick, there was a question. Are there any numbers, estimates on use of hunters or success for any of those? Or since they're not really regulated, I guess they're probably not.
So what I've talked about so far is Bear Island, Greco Island, and Ravenswood. We don't have check stations at those locations. And so there's no staff there. We don't collect harvest reports. So we do not have any official, I have anecdotal information, but I don't have any data that I could send to people to talk about what's harvested and what's not. I can tell you that if you're really looking to get Canada geese, Bear and Greco Island are the place that you should go on the Refuge.
Okay, great. And they still need to have a permit for like all of the Don Edwards, right? Or just the ones that are regulated
So if, Bear and Greco Island are tidal areas, and even though, so you don't need a refuge permit for those areas, only when you're inside of our managed ponds.
Okay.
But if you're confused about which areas you need a permit for, just get
one.
Yeah. So these are the Maori ponds and also pond A19 on the right-hand side of the screen. Our Maori ponds are owned by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service as part of the refuge. However, they are still managed for salt production by Cargill. So Cargill really kind of calls the shots on how these ponds are managed, how much water is in them, how salty they are. And so they are open for hunting 7 days a week. The only caveat is that if Cargill is doing maintenance on these ponds, they would close them to hunting, but Cargill would give me advanced notice and I would give hunters advanced notice through my email distribution list and through the Facebook page that I administer. I'll talk about that at the end. And then there's Pond A19, which is owned and managed by Fish and Wildlife Service. It's completely tidal, also open 7 days a week. You can see these ponds are located just above Coyote Creek. And from my understanding, the best place to, and these are accessible from a boat only. And the best place to launch your boat would be Alviso Marina, which is a Santa Clara County Parks facility. So,
Ryan and Melissa, for both of you or whoever might be able to answer this, is there like a magic number as far as passability, like what the tide is, like what level? It might be a low tide, but it might be a 1.7 and still make it passable to hunt in these areas where, what exactly is it a minus tide that makes these unhuntable, or is it some special number?
Not necessarily. I mean, most of it's huntable at any tide. I mean, it's all they're all tidal creeks and sloughs in there. So there's throughout Alviso or Coyote Creek or any of those, there's generally water. Some of them are more passable than others. So yeah, you get a big negative. Some of the sloughs in the back, unless you've got a mudder, you're not going to get very far, or depending on how you set yourself up. Certainly there's definitely a learning curve with tidal hunting.
Yeah.
But most of those areas, and it depends what kind of boat you have too, so.
Okay. I'm just totally new to tidal hunting, and I would, that would be something that I'm sure it just takes experience, but one negative experience could kind of keep somebody out of there. So
well, and you're definitely going to have a negative experience usually when you're starting out if you don't have somebody to mentor you down there in the South Bay, because it's very easy to get caught up on the flats when you don't know. Many of those areas can look like they're deep and you've only got a foot of water under you. So
all right, thanks. Sorry Melissa, just thinking,
Sure.
answering some of these questions.
Yeah, and that's a good question. And what I'll say also is when you launch at Alviso Marina, it is also very, very tidal. And they will have a sign at the marina that tells you the minimum tide that is required to launch and to return to the marina. So you really, really want to pay attention to tides.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of questions that I have sitting here in the Ravenswood. Would you recommend that a hunter not have a dog? Hunting from a kayak? What are the bottoms like at Ravenwood when it comes to being able to retrieve?
I think it's similar to Eden Landing. I think there are several areas in Ravenswood that are more easy to walk across to retrieve. And the reason for that is because we dry them out completely every year. They get pretty solid. So when we flood them up, they don't get too mushy. So I would be comfortable having any kind of floatable boat, kayak, or if you've got some hip waders walking out to retrieve, you'd be safe doing so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to portions unless there's other questions. So these are our Alviso ponds that are open 3 days a week for waterfowl hunting, Saturday, Sunday, and Wednesdays. So our ponds are what's identified in white letters and numbers. So you can see the yellow is Sunnyvale Water Treatment Plan ponds. Those are not open to hunting. Pond A4 is Santa Clara Valley Water, and that is not open to hunting. But the white labeled ponds are the Refuge. They are open to hunting 3 days a week. And I'll go into more detail about each of these pond systems. What I'll do is I'll talk about ponds AB1 through A3W first. And then I'll talk about ponds A5, 7, and A8. So I'll go ahead and go on. And this is just another map that you'll find on our website. This map basically tells you where you can drive your vehicle to get to the check stations, to get through the gates. And you can park basically anywhere along these levees. And obviously you would want to just pull off to the shoulder, to the side, so that you're not blocking the levee to have any other vehicular access. This map also shows you where our gates are located. I mentioned that if you register for our permit, you will get a gate combination. It changes every year, so you want to register every year, but that combination will get you through these gates. And then you can see in pink are our check stations. So these particular ponds have permanent blinds. Again, like Eden Landing, they're in various stage of condition. These blinds are not reservable. They're available on a first come, first serve basis. And let me see what I want to say about that. The check station along Stevens Creek would be for blinds in AB1, A2E, AB2. And then the check station over here in the corner of A3W is for ponds A3W and A3N. And I think that, yeah. So this is what I wanted to mention as far as some changes that we have going on this year. This map is also available on our website. So the Refuge is undergoing a multi-year and multi-million-dollar project to do a couple of things in this pond system. The first thing we want to do is we want to raise the perimeter levees because these ponds over the years are getting more and more shallow because we let bay water in through the water control structure. Sediment comes in and that sediment is starting to fill up in the bottom of these ponds, but our levees are staying the same. They're too shallow. So we have had every year becomes more and more challenging for us to raise water levels in these ponds. So another piece of this project is that we're going to completely rebuild all of the blinds. And in fact, we're putting in additional blinds. So it is my dream that at some point we'll hit a waterfowl season when we've got these beautiful brand new blinds with dog ramps and everything, which would be fantastic. But I did want to just let everyone know that although construction is going on right now, crews are not to be working on hunt days. So you might see equipment out there on a weekend or a Wednesday, but you shouldn't see any actual work going on. This past wet weather weekend kind of messed it up and the guys had to be out there this Wednesday. But moving forward, you should not worry about construction going on. The levees that are identified in red, normally these levees are available for hunters to moor their boats for this season. And this year, those levees outlined in red are not available. They're not accessible for hunters. So like I said, this map's on our website and yeah. And this is what one of our hunt blind maps look like, again, on our website. I wanted to put this in tonight's presentation because we are having a lot of trouble keeping the ponds flooded up and navigable in the north parts of AB1, right up here, and AB2. So I have circled the blinds that I really don't recommend hunters try to get to and from. This last weekend, we had an unfortunate incident where we had hunters get stuck in a blind at low tide. And there's no way for us to get our LE guys out in our airboat to rescue you. So you literally have to sit there and wait for the next high tide or for the water to come up to leave. And so we had guys sitting in a blind for 7-8 hours this last weekend. It wasn't a good time. So anyway, this map is also on our website. So just keep that in mind when you're wanting to go to a blind. The northern part of these ponds is not looking so hot this year yet.
Really quick, Melissa, are the blinds when they're there, are they, does somebody sign into them or are they just kind of like you check to see if somebody's in them when you're out in the field?
Yeah, so basically when you get to the check station for the ponds I was just talking about, it's a self check-in. And they are available on a first come, first served basis. And I'll show you the check-in sheets in just a moment. But basically you sign yourself into a blind when you see that it's available. And we ask that you sign yourself out when you're done hunting for the day. And so I'll go over that in a little more detail in just a second.
Okay.
But I do want to go back and just talk about ponds A5, A7, and A8 really quickly. These ponds, to be honest with you, they're really, all these internal levees have been so breached that this is really just one giant pond. But folks ask me, if I don't have a boat, where can I go and walk in on the levees and hunt? This is where you want to go. You can walk in, you can bicycle in. I've seen hunters hook up really elaborate trailers to the backs of their bicycles. And you can see the levees that are huntable. And if you wanted to hunt from a boat, there's also a kind of little boat ramp, rudimentary boat ramp near this check station right here, that you could just pull your boat in and hunt from your boat. Again, you would just sign in. There is no sign out, obviously, because you're not signing out of a blind, but you would sign in. We just like to kind of keep track of how many hunters we've got here. And so, yeah, this is a great place if you are a beginner and you just want to walk around and get a lay of the land and not worry about the stress of getting to a blind or anything like that. This is where I would recommend you go if you're new to start out. So.
Melissa, this might not, this might seem like it's putting you on the spot, and I'm not trying to do that, but people have been asking how safe it is to eat the waterfowl out in this bay. I've heard people talk that bay ducks just don't taste good, and I can testify that ducks are what they eat. So if they're eating something that may not be the most desired feed, they may not taste as good. Like I live in the grasslands, so ducks here eat, it's the swamp timothy and smartweed, all kinds of good seed foods, and they're excellent eating. Whereas sometimes the bay may be, different kind of food. So
I know that Ryan probably has more anecdotal personal experience, but what I will tell you is that the Refuge does a lot. We have a lot of water quality standards that we need to meet to operate these ponds and to get permits from Water Quality Control Board and BCDC and so forth. But my point is that one concern in the South Bay for years has been mercury levels from old almaden mines. That sediment that carries the mercury has been pretty well buried under new sediment coming down. And so I wouldn't be that concerned about any kind of like toxins or anything like that. And this is just this is my personal opinion. I want to make sure I make that clear. But we have strict water quality standards for dissolved oxygen and salinity and pH and so forth. So I wouldn't be concerned about it. But as far as how the ducks are going to taste in the South Bay, you'll have to find out for yourself.
Maybe make some coot sausage, right?
Yeah. Anyway, but this is a slide I've already covered. I just mentioned that there's a sign in, sign out, and really quickly, when you look at the hunter check-in, this is just last year's check-in form. So when you're signing in, this is pretty self-explanatory. You just want to write down what blind you're going out to, the time that you're heading out, and when you come back, please sign out of that blind so the next people know that it's available. Also, you might want to grab a harvest form, also known as the red cards. These are just the harvest information. You can grab one of these sheets for your entire hunt party. And we love to be able to just know what birds and how many are coming out of which ponds. So
now, is this information posted anywhere, or is just for in-house?
I'm sorry, do you mean the harvest forms?
Yeah, because I can tell you from my experience here in the valley, any refuge, somebody hunts. Sometimes they don't want to report their birds because they're scared that people are going to get all the numbers and then they're going to compete for that spot. So you might get more truthful information if it's stayed,
Yes. So I used to report out on this, but I think the last year I did was 2013. And honestly, I just don't have time to compile data. I give it to our biologists. So this stays internal. So
please put your truthful harvest information in there.
Yeah.
It helps them out. You should do it anyways, but it is very important that you guys put truthful. Don't worry about the competition. Just get it truthfully reported.
Yeah, we would appreciate it. Okay, so wrapping up here, what can you do to help out if you're out there? So number one complaint we get from other visitors on the refuge is just the trash that's left behind. A lot of the trash is their empty shot shells. And we understand that you can't always feasibly or safely get every shot shell, but please make an effort to pack that out and any other trash that you have. Our levees are so fragile. We have 65 miles of bay mud levees in the South Bay, and they really get beat up over time through weather, driving. So please go slow. And then if those levees are wet, use extreme caution. They will be very, very slippery. We have, in fact, we're getting ready to gravel the levee road to our Pond A8 check station. So that's really good news I got today, because right now it's dirt, and after this last weekend, it's just too slippery. So, and then when you're out there, I mentioned before, some hunters decide to moor their boats on the levees for the season, and please just don't move them around, don't touch them. This is my contact information. That is my work cell phone. You're welcome to call or text me. I have it on me at all times during the waterfowl hunt season. You could also email me. If you're out on the ponds and you have a concern about a violation or you need help, call U.S. Park Police Dispatch and they can get a hold of a warden. They can get a hold of a federal wildlife officer to help you out. And of course, emergencies are 911. The one thing I wanted to mention that I haven't yet is that I also administer a Facebook page for San Francisco Bay waterfowl hunters. And the reason I started this Facebook page a couple of years ago is because some hunters want to be able to have the ability to ask questions of one another. And so, for example, I'm a new hunter. I'd love to have a mentor, or I'd love to go out with somebody who's familiar with an area. I'll buy you lunch. Who's willing to take me out? And that's great, great use of our Facebook page. We're not able to post anything. I have to approve posts, and I can't approve anything that promotes the sale of goods and services. So if you're selling your boat, I can't put that on Facebook, but I encourage you to check that out if you are interested in that kind of thing. That's it. That's all I've got.
All right. Well, a couple comments that need to be made. First off, thank you both, Melissa and Ryan. But some of you people who may not be knowledgeable in hunting out in these environments, is you should always set yourself up for the worst. As far as wader choices, I would recommend you wear full chest waders versus hip waders. One little fall where you get stuck in the mud, you're gonna fall to your knees. You're gonna fill up your waders, your hip boots, I mean. Whereas if you were in full chest waders, you might get fall in the water and have water at your butt, but you're gonna have that extra wader that's gonna cover you, so you'll stay dry. Also, your firearms, any of your equipment, you're in a saltwater environment, they're gonna need extra care when you get home. Because that salt is very corrosive. You can have issues with your firearms rusting up very easily. So try to get home and take care of your equipment really quick. Otherwise, you may find yourself having some difficulties with your firearms. Some other questions that were asked, is like, how deep is this pond? How deep is that pond? Being tidal, this is going to vary. So it's going to take a little bit of experience, a little testing out. Somebody mentioned, take a walking stick with you. That way you can test the ground in front of you before you proceed. A lot of people use old ski poles. You can get those at any thrift store. They'll make a great support while you're walking in the mud if you have to. Some areas they don't want you walking in on the islands or in the mud. But if you have to, in order to retrieve the bird, please consider safety first. So what else do we have? So going off of some of the open questions, somebody's offered to send you harvest information via email. So that would be great. You have Melissa's email address up there. Please write it down. Is it easy to retrieve birds on foot for the R1 pond? I don't know if that's easy or not. Not sure about that, Hunter.
Easier than most, but again, I would follow your advice, Sean, as to grabbing a walking stick and just making sure where you're putting your foot.
Are electric bikes allowed anywhere? I know for most of ours, it's no for our Fish and Wildlife place. I mean, California Fish and Wildlife spots, we do not allow electric bikes.
Yes, so the National Wildlife Refuge system actually does allow e-bikes. So that's something that I can give a little more information if Fred, if you want to email me, I can send you more information about that, because that's something that's new and we haven't had a lot out there yet. And I'm not sure if there's anybody using them.
Actually, I might have misspoke because I know they were trying to address it this year. Before, they were always considered vehicles when they have a motor on them, but I'm not sure what they determined on that. So check with every refuge area that you go to. Their specific rules may vary. All right, somebody wants to know your Facebook page. I'll get that from you, Melissa, and I'll include that on the links page that they'll get after our webinar. Okay. Yeah, you just advertise your Facebook group and they all want to get on it. So that's great. 25 shot shell limit, does that apply on Don Edwards?
Yes, it does, unless you're in the tidal areas in the open bay, Bear Island, Greco Island, Maui, you do not have a shot shell limit. But if you're in Alviso ponds, yes, there's a 25 shell limit.
Okay. All right. And there's a couple others talking about walking waders out in A6 and A7 and A8. Can you do that?
Sure. So what I will tell you is these ponds, like all salt ponds, have borrow ditches on the inside edges. So even though you're looking out into a pond and it might look like it's only a foot deep, the edge could be 6 to 8 feet deep. So I would use extreme caution in walking anywhere on the bottom of these ponds. And Alviso ponds, you will sink in the mud as well, in addition to being varying water depths. So just be very careful. I used to encourage folks to use dogs or flotation, floatables or fishing poles. Yeah.
Great. And there's one question that's for everybody, and I'm going to be answering it. It's regarding boats, use of boats under power. And whenever you have somebody who's hunting out of a boat, if they're using the motor, any type of motor, electric, gas, or a sail, all their momentum from those implements has to have ceased prior to taking waterfowl. So it's called boat, taking under power. You can't, charge into a flock of ducks with a boat. Lifting your motor doesn't matter. If your propulsion is still continuing from that motoring, that would be illegal. You can drift via wind, you can drift via a paddle, that's fine, but not an implement such as a motor, electric or gas, or a sail. All right. That's about it. I think we want to go ahead and wrap this up. We've proceeded to go, 20 minutes after said. We still have a lot of people with us. I really do appreciate you sticking with us.
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
Let me hit that consumption warning. So the people that were asking about eating ducks and is there any advisories or problems with eating ducks out of the South Bay? On page 19 of our statewide waterfowl regulation booklet, which is available from our website, there is a waterfowl consumption health warning, and I'll just go over the South San Francisco Bay one, and it's basically because of elevated psyllium levels, No one should eat more than 4 ounces per week of greater Scott meat from the Central Bay, or more than 4 ounces per week of greater Scott meat from the South Bay in any 2-week period. No one should eat livers of duck from this area. So not real restrictive, but there are some guidelines. So that's it.
All right. Really quick too, I'd like to invite you to next week's webinars. We have one that'll be covering Grizzly Island and Sassoon Marsh. And if you enjoyed tonight's, we're going to be covering basically the same format. And then we're going to talk about Napa Sonoma Marsh and San Pablo Bay, which Melissa will be joining us then too. I just want to tell you thank you for coming on to our webinar. Hope it's been helpful to you. Please feel free to view all the recordings, and this future recording will be put out there. Thanks a lot. Not sure what else we can offer to you, but please reach out to me with any questions or comments. I do have a survey that you can complete to tell me what you need as far as future webinars. And thank you, Ryan and Melissa, for your help, and my other fellow staff, and all you Hunter Ed instructors out there who've joined us tonight. Your support is greatly appreciated, and thank you. Good night. Can we get your contact info? You will have my contact info in the future email. So thanks. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate all your comments. And staff, I'll see you on our Teams meeting. So thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Good night.